Oh, hello there. Hello. Hi,
Hello.
Kelda. Welcome.
How
Welcome,
is all?
welcome. All is good. I'm just actually looking up into the Discord because I thought maybe tonight, like we did last Friday night, actually, which was quite nice, we might make the Discord available for people should they want to come in and have a chat at some stage during the hour. Come chat with us on Discord. I'll put the little link and then I'll change it from all to DOC or else everyone sends it out and goes send. There we go. Hey team. Hey everybody. How you all doing? Hope you're well. We're having a bit of a chat tonight about the week that was. We're having a bit of a chat tonight about an event that started last Friday that some of you know about. And we are going to spend some time looking at some footage from the conversation that I had with Chantal Baker. We are also going to possibly take your calls, and we're going to have a bit of a chat about an issue that I'm seeing within the community. It's hard, because I say the community. Who am I talking about, Chewy? Maybe like-minded people, maybe people who we want to support and we hope would want to support us and what we're doing, and people who at one stage would consider us their allies and us them as well, and them us. And so we're going to chat about all sorts of stuff tonight. We're not really looking at the most important issues of the day, like what happened in the last 30 seconds of the All Black game last night. I knew Chewy wanted to talk about that like nothing else.
Oh, like when that dragon turned up, bro?
Yeah, man.
Oh, bro, so good.
That sports ball that you were talking about.
I may not have seen it.
And I'm not going to mention it because it's not important. So Friday night, it's always a little bit different, and tonight's going to be different again because we are really. It feels like, Chewy, this has been a week-long process. How many times have you and I talked about this week? Maybe 3 times.
I was looking at my call logs the other day, and we've spoken for about 2.5 hours over this week, just about this issue.
Yeah.
It's been an experience. I mean, we were really thrown off kilter end of last week. We've spent days discussing this. Do we? Don't we? What's the best thing? What are we doing? Why are we doing it? How are we doing it? And what are the people that have been supporting us want to see or want us to do? And I think we've come up with a good way of moving forward.
Yeah. And look, I think a part of this is it's not even, for me, Chewy, it's not even necessarily about this one conversation. What this week has done for me is crystallized how we are going to move forward in this product. So yes, people are going to look, and I know there were some comments last week about, gosh, this is all a very big thing about one conversation. For me, this wasn't actually necessarily about one conversation. It was using one conversation to try and figure out what we're doing from here on in. So the one conversation for me is more the catalyst than even necessarily the focus. I know it sounds a bit weird because we are going to talk about the one conversation tonight, but for me, it was very much an idea of where to from here. How do we roll? How do we run this? And like Chewy said, and I know I've said this a couple of times this week, the thing that threw me most of all about last week, and look, let me say this, we are going to get it in the neck again today from some people, without question, right? Without question, there is no solution or no action that's going to make everybody happy. But the last week of going through this has crystallized my view of what I want to do. And hopefully that means for BHN what we want to do, although it's not just me making that decision, and where to. So let me set the scene for you. Actually, is there anything else you want to talk about there, Chewy? Because, yeah, for me, just to make it clear to people, this is not necessarily about the one interview, but the one interview has caused me to take a step backwards and go where to from here.
Yeah.
I just want to make that kind of clear.
Yeah.
Anything you want to talk about?
Oh, just that, yeah, like we started with one issue, and it's just one of those things where you kind of you get a problem. I like breaking problems down to solve them. And it's just like when you take all of these things apart, there's quite a few like interesting discussions, and there's different ways that we could do things. And like the conversation on Twitter, as an example, was vastly different from the one that we had on YouTube when we were talking about it, because
and on Discord,
they are two different audiences.
Yeah.
So who do we do we give more weight to one side than the other? There's lots there that we had to unpack.
Yeah,
and there was a comment of like, oh, you guys were just taking it as woe as me. The internet's being mean to me. It wasn't that at all. It was just like, oh shit, have we got this really wrong?
Yeah, I think one of the comments was us sort of playing the victim card. And I actually think if you go back and look what was said, at no stage did we play a victim card, because we're not the victims in this. It's pretty easy. And in fact, even though last Friday night was a bit of a blur, I'm pretty confident saying if you went back and watched it, what you would see is me saying things like there was a Twitter pylon, and then going, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not complaining about that. I'm just observing what happened. Now, the reality is there are going to be people who think tonight is us defending ourselves. And this is one of the conclusions I've come to, is that there are going to be some people that we never see eye to eye on, even if we're in the same ballpark or the same community or the same, I don't feel like we're in the same team as some of these people anymore, but let's say we're playing the same game to a different level, but playing the same game. No matter what, there are going to be people who think that what we do tonight is self-indulgent white-splaining, as we got told last week, defending ourselves when we have no idea what's going on. That's going to happen tonight. So be it. Because one of the things I realized over this week is that and I'm not trying to sound like a martyr here or anything, but I got to be me, and I got to do what I want to do. And it's not quite be damned, what everyone else thinks, because obviously you still want to communicate and check in on things and various things. But I can't set my standard based on someone else's inconsistent rules. And someone else's inconsistent rules will be demonstrated tonight, because what we are going to do is show you a little bit of the conversation that's been happening behind the scenes on Twitter and stuff through this week. And to make it really clear, I'm not doing this to defend us. I'm not doing this to get sympathy. I'm really doing this to show you guys. And actually, it's not that I don't care about anybody else, but you guys are the ones who are with us. You guys are the ones who have been, sticking around and finding out. You guys are the ones who at the very moment are signing up for Patreon, right? And so I'm talking to you guys. If there's anyone else out there, the other thing I realized is with the Twitter pylon, is that when I started to have a bit of a look and investigate into what was happening, they were going through runs of people who have nothing to do with us. One person was tweeting one thing, and 19 people were then agreeing to it or saying, X, Y, Z about it, who had no idea of the context, no idea of anything at all that was going on. So I'll make it clear. Some people won't believe this. Some people won't accept this, but this is not to defend us. In fact, if anything, I really do believe in the theory of iron sharpening iron. I see some real problems on the left with how the left interacts with one another when perhaps they're in disagreement with how to do things. And again, this is not a woe is me thing. And I get that for a couple of reasons, right? I get that from my experience, but I also get that because I've spoken to more than a dozen people this week. I've given the video to more than a dozen people this week, the interview. I've given it to the LGBT community. I've given it to Māori and Pacifica, like representatives from these communities. I've given it to Muslims. I've given it to people in the disinformation world, people who are doing that kind of work. I've given it to journalists, right? And I've heard back from Some of them. And look, I'm never going to identify those people. If those people want to out themselves and say, we watched it and we didn't think they should play it, or we watched it and we think they should play it, that's up to them. I'm never going to say who it is. Chewy knows who a few of the names are, but even Chewy doesn't know all of them. Not that I'm keeping it a secret from him, but it just hasn't been a part of it.
Yep.
I went to those people and I checked in and I asked, and we asked questions. And that's one of the ways we came to our conclusion. But one of the things I heard from several of those people is how annoyed they were as well with how the left eats itself. It's kind of hilarious, wrong word, how on some level this has been a demonstration of exactly what the right accuses the left of doing. You know, one alleged misstep by someone, and then they're out of the boat and they're the enemy. And I don't feel that way personally. I'm not particularly offended by it. Like I said, this is not a defense, but as an observer, that's what's happened. Someone has mentioned the idea of cancel culture. We can't be cancelled. No one owns us. This doesn't actually earn us anything at the moment. There's no way. The only way someone
we have
can
lost
cancel
all of our sponsors.
the only way someone can cancel us is if you guys stop watching. That's literally the only way. And then we have no one to watch, and then it'll just be me and Chewy talking to ourselves. Sorry, Chewy.
But I would like to talk about NordVPN.
Me undies.
Look, talking about the left, the progressives. It's a broad church, right? Not everyone's going to be on the same part of the journey as everybody else. Not like. I think we would be the first to cop to the fact that you're talking to the straight white man beardy talkie program.
Beardy talkie program. Yes.
Beardy talkie mans. And that was one of the things that came out of it. Look, we're not part of the trans community. We're not part of the LGBT
We're
community.
not the target of the abuse.
Yeah. We're supporters of it.
Yeah.
But we're not part of it. And that can be a really clear delineation to it. But in my opinion, don't slam the door on people that want to help. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do. I'm of the mind that you've got to know your enemy, and you can't hit a target unless you can see it. And
that's the idea
that's
of
part of what we're doing.
Sunlight is the best disinfectant.
Yep.
And look, this will annoy my style will annoy people because
of that.
Oh,
fuck! I can hear that flavor.
When it comes to how I interview people, I don't Karen Plunkett them. I don't jump on them and stop their answers. I let them answer, and then I come in with another point or a question or a clarification.
It's for the same reason we were actually talking about at length when we're talking about Plunkett. Is eventually if you just get guests on and you yell at them as much as we fucking want to, you just won't get them on the show anymore. And then you can't point at them and go, look, here's Kevin P. Dumbass of the White Knights of the Waikato. You've got to walk a line between asking a question, pointing out their fallacies. Like I keep coming back to that interview you did with James Hake.
Yeah.
And the fact that I was very anti that to start with, and I just thought, well, we'll see how it goes. And it went very well.
Well, and saying that, so one last thing before we start to talk about the week that was, I've been drinking Pepsi and I've got burps. Okay, I'm back again. Jeez. I'm addicted to Pepsi Max. Let me just say that.
The beardy talkie man's brought to you by Pepsi Max. The flavor that just hangs around in your beard.
We copped it last week, and I actually think we took it on the chin on some level. Problem is, when you got a beard, they typically miss your chin. They go for it, and they miss it. People weren't aware of this. I didn't participate in Twitter at all. I answered one person once and said, actually, just so you know, we didn't play the interview, because I was still getting messages and retweets and stuff on Tuesday about how we should never have played the interview and we shouldn't play the interview. We never played it.
Yeah, I did like that.
So the one thing I did was about Saturday afternoon, I responded to one person going, just actually, are you aware that it actually didn't get played? And that, then I got a private message from that person saying, thanks for not playing it, but not a public message. I got a lot of public criticism, which is fine, whatever. It's Twitter. It's not the real world, as Dave Chappelle says. But I got a private acknowledgement of thanks for not playing it. So, but like, we have changed how we do things here because of it, because valid points have been made. I concur. I acknowledge that. I have never stopped and checked my content with anyone. And to this point, as Chewy's just talking about James Hake, it's been fine. From now on, there will be no long interviews, no long form interviews that get put to the show without going through some other people first. Chewy being one of them, especially if it's a night Chewy's on, because one of the things I feel worst about is the amount of abuse Chewy got last week when all I did, and I'll show it to you now, was send this tweet out at about 6 o'clock. That was the tweet last Friday that I sent out at about 6 o'clock. That was it. That was Chewy's level of involvement. And I feel like, so can I publicly apologize to you, Chewy, right now for getting you involved like that?
No, it was an experience for everyone, and I'm part of this. So
that's changed, right? That's changed. So we won't do that. I won't do that anymore, unless it's something that we all know is going to not be controversial but interesting. Fine, I'm not going to check in with Chewy when I talk to Don McGlashan halfway down Dominion Road. Different product, but you know what I mean. But if it is something that potentially could cause controversy or could cause hurt or could cause harm, then we will I'll check in, because I realized during the week, and I said this last night if you're watching, one of the criticisms we give to, for example, people on the alt-right who are writing blogs or sending tweets, is they have no level of accountability. Journalists go through a level of accountability to make sure what they're putting out there is as right as it can be, whether that's editors, sub-editors, legal, whatever it is. And even Fire and Fury, there was criticism in that the other side, the people they were talking about, don't have that level. I realized that I wasn't using that level. I wasn't using any levels of accountability to making sure what I was putting out was right. I'm not going to do that anymore. But I also realized that the people who were piling on last Friday, equally, they don't have any levels of accountability. That's why it went from 0 to 120 in the first or second tweet by someone after I sent that tweet out. Now, I'm not actually criticizing those people. They do what they want now. But because it did, that's what shook us. What shook me the most of all last week, not playing the victim card, I'm just giving you my experience. It's my real world experience, is that people that we were in the boat with, that people we had worked with, that people that we were building relationship with in the boat said, you guys are fuckwits. Get out of my sight. That's what threw me. Not the criticism per se. It's that it was people that we were building relationship with, and it was people that I thought trusted us, which obviously didn't, and it was people who I trusted and was respecting of their work. Said, you guys go fuck yourself, you're out. That's what shook me. And that's what took the time. That's why we didn't do it on Friday. And that's why we had to stop and assess and go, where are we? And that's actually what we've come to now. And where we've come to, I don't know what order we're doing this all in, is I'm cool not to be in their team. You know what I'm saying? I'm cool for those people to be the high profile, important people. Someone sent me a message and basically said to me, in fact, I'll fucking read it to you. I won't say who it's from. I'll read it to you. And I won't read the names of the people it's come from. Someone sent me a message about what had happened, the so-called pylon, and I'm not using that word, like a woe is me. I'm just saying the observation. Said to me, it's a long time ago. Said to me this, right? It's a massive long tweet. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Said to me, I'm missing it. It's such a long tweet. But it basically said, here we go. If you want to grow a following in the left sphere, you want to listen. Can I be really clear with this? I couldn't give a fuck about growing an audience in the left sphere. Like, I honestly could not give a fuck about growing an audience in the left sphere. Right? If that's what people have been thinking, that we're getting various people on and doing this and doing that because we're trying to grow a left-wing audience, then you've got it completely wrong. We are on the left, but we walk and chew gum. I will talk to anyone who wants to watch this, you come and watch. In fact, I actually think sometimes talking to the other side might be more beneficial because, they always say that the healthy person doesn't need a doctor, the sick person does. But I'm actively not trying to say this is a product for the left by the left. Yeah. I'm not into insular broadcasting.
People in the chat will know this. There's been some robust discussions in the chat, and we've got some regular followers that come in here that are definitely not on board with everything that we say, and we appreciate those
really
people.
Get them out.
Yeah, ban hammer activated. But those are more interesting discussions, and I like to think the one rule we've had in the chat is just show respect to one another and back up what you're saying. That's basically everything.
All right.
So yeah.
Hey, there are people saying, "What? Get on with it." We can. Do you want to? I see you've already starred 6 messages. Do you want to? Are they worth going through before we get into this part 2?
Yes. Some of them are very good. We've got one from Ro saying that we didn't play the victim card. You came to a crossroad and you had to work out which way to go. Simple, really. The outcome, not so much. We have Joey Henderson here saying, let's hope we see the interview. Yeah, we might get to it. Mr. Rob Burney, pretty clear you fellas were discombobulated, which is a great word to both write and say. Rob also says that that was not unreasonable that we're discombobulated. Fiona from Facebook, not the entity, she's just on Facebook.
I was going to say, get an interview with Zuckerberg.
What's the reason that there's even an issue whether the interview plays or not? We're not children. I don't think it's really about being children or not. I think it's just giving a bit of space to people that had some real concerns about what we were potentially about to do.
Well, no, look, let me answer that from my perspective. I don't believe broadcasting everything is okay. And actually, within the interview, I talked to Chantal Baker, and she agrees with me, although one of the criticisms was she'll agree with everything you say. But anyway, that I wouldn't broadcast someone who was an expert on how teenagers should kill themselves. There is a line in the sand. The question is, most people have a different line. And last week, what I did was went, fuck, where's our line? Have we gone over the line? Because most people would say you don't want to broadcast everything. That's the freedom of speech is not freedom from responsibility. I think all of us would agree that even if you were the most ardent free speech person, if the free speech was about, how to rape your daughter, I'm sure you wouldn't be okay with that. Like, we all have lines. Fairly extreme example, I know, I apologize for that. But when we got that influx especially from people that we newish and we were getting to know better, the reason I sort of stopped was I guess I was checking my line. I've checked that now. I've made some decisions. That's what this week's been about.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, it's just taking a moment to check where we were, and we did that. Stephen, with the pertinent fact, he loves the People's Wookie. That is, of course, me on Twitter. I had to change my Twitter handle because Leo Malloy got me banned from Twitter because
it's your handle for now.
Put in a lunch bag and thrown off a bridge. That's all. And Caitlin Spice, the knee jerk was pretty violent. Look, I love an internet pile-on. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, but it did make my head spin. And for someone that has been a supporter of these movements and causes and has been pretty much lifelong on the left, anti-fascist, anti-white supremacist space, it made my head spin, and it made me want to pull my head in, like a turtle, and just go, oh, okay, no one wants to hear from me, I just won't be involved. And like, this whole discussion has not changed the things that I believe in, the things that I'll stand on the front line for, the people that I will interact with. Friends can disagree, we will get past this.
Yeah, and look, that's something else that's really been really clear to me as well. As I said, I may not be on the same team as these people, but that doesn't mean I'm not playing the same game. I think I said to someone, I might have even said this last night, they can go off and be the All Blacks. They can be the big leagues. They can go and do that. And I love the All Blacks. I will support them from the sidelines, as hard as I can. I'll just keep playing club rugby. You know, it's the same sport. It's at different levels. You guys can go and get the media exposure. You guys can go and, you know, be the leaders and all that. That's I'm gonna support you. I'm gonna fill your sails with as much little bit of wind as I can, but I will be in the dinghy 100 meters behind you, doing something slightly different. Probably is rowing round in a circle with one oar, knowing me. But what I'm saying is, I feel like that there was some last week who ejected. I'll say me because I won't speak for you two. Ejected me from the boat. And I'm saying, fine, I'm out of your boat, but I'm still going to I'm still going to go like this from 100 meters away, even if it does technically nothing to your sail. But I'm still up for doing it.
Just two more comments because otherwise we'll just keep doing this all night. Fiona, just like I would respond to you, but I can't chat to people that are on Facebook. Can we please clarify what all of this talk about? What is the conversation so far? Is it just about one interview with Chantal Baker, meaning a pile-on? If you like, you can go back and see last Friday's video. We had planned to screen basically an unedited 2-hour long-form interview with Chantal Baker. 2.5 hours with Chantal Baker.
But look, the other thing, Fiona, is we're actually going to go through the past few days, and we're going to show some stuff that was happening on Twitter, and we're going to actually explain the process for us to get to where we've got to. So we're actually probably, after we get to the end of that, you'll probably have a better idea. So
we'll address that, and then one, I think, very pertinent content. Just a follow up from Caitlin. I think people were scared. They were reacting out of fear and not necessarily logically. I 100% get that. There are so many people in that, and I'm primarily talking about the trans LGBT space. These people have been let down by so many people over the years. It's got to be hard to trust. And I get that. And I think it was just, I guess, blissful ignorance that we're on the right side, so we can do no wrong.
Yeah, but also I want to be careful not to say we're the shit and we've always got it in hand. I mean, you know, the conversation in and of it's by itself. I said we're going to get in the neck from some people tonight. Again, we're done, right? Go for it. You know, Twitter shame us away if you want. No problems. But I want to make sure that people are aware that there's no arrogance in this. Right. I know that I've said before that I like speaking to these people and I like giving people a rope to hang themselves. And, you know, the Maya Angelou quote that I always say about when someone tells you who they are, believe them the first time. I love that kind of stuff. I'm not saying that there's not going to be interviews now in the future, whatever, where someone walks all over me. I'm not saying I'm always going to get it right. So, you know, people are scared about it. People are worried about it. Sometimes those fears and worries may be proven right. And that's probably one of their reasons. Again, we stopped and checked. And as I said at the start, with numerous people, some people said, I wouldn't play it, right? The overwhelming response was, play it. So that was the response that we were getting, right? Some people said they wouldn't. Most people said we should. And we'll give you how we're going to do that and what it's going to look like at the end of the episode, because we are going to play it. But it's not going to be quite as easy as you think, because what if you've been watching during the week? You basically know what the situation is going to be.
We're not playing the whole thing because it's 2.5 hours long.
Yeah, well, that's part of it as well. It's not particularly good broadcasting to have you sitting around for 3 hours of a show as well. So, but we'll talk about that. So should we talk about the actual events that happened that got us to this point?
Yeah,
I kind of almost feel like we've halfway got there just in our little chat here.
But that was supposed to be a 10-minute preamble.
Yeah. Let's just get into what actually happened last week, just to let people know what's on. Let's get on to it, says Fiona. So last week about 6 o'clock, I sent this conversation out. I don't know what it says, doesn't it? Oh, there you go, 6:48, 7 o'clock. I sent out this tweet pretty simply. You know, Chantal Baker joins Pat for a long form conversation. See you at 10 p.m. By the way, Chewy, I'm going to throw you under the bus. I didn't know that at the time, but that's what I said in the tweet. Now, let me say one other thing. This tweet thread has been deleted. Now, people might go, oh, I deleted it today. And the reason I deleted it today was I'm going to share some other tweets from this tweet thread. I don't want any of those people identified. I actually don't want, this is one of the things I'm saying, this is not a woe is me or a woe is us. I actually don't want to cast any aspersions at any of these people, who I still think are doing amazing things and should still do amazing things. So I deleted this tweet at about 5 o'clock today. So I was up there all week for people to have a crack at and to retweet and to tell us how terrible we were. And I deleted it today because I knew I was going to share tonight. So then if any of you out there kind of go, oh, I wonder who said that, you can't find out because the tweet is gone. So that this is now gone. So that's the tweet that I sent out at 6:48 p.m. And very, very quickly after that, the conversation started. This is just a selection. I don't know how many tweets there would have been, Chewy. Certainly hundreds. Certainly hundreds. And look, we're little. So hundreds of tweets for us is actually significant. When I say significant, I mean a lot. That's a lot of kind of interaction going on online. For other places, they need thousands or tens of thousands. But for a little place, I've only got, 2,000 Twitter followers. So, hundreds and hundreds of tweets, especially all of them saying things like pedestaling dangerous liars doesn't do anyone any good. In fact, it spreads their influence further. And there's a reason media don't interview Chantal apart from the platform. We know her vile views already. She tells us all the time, do the right thing and cancel this, or telling us that we are now part of the problem, or saying, I'm not thrilled about this. Platforming neo-Nazis only encourages them. Or saying that we're just providing footage for Chantal, who talked shit about Antifa, who harassed disinformation researchers in public. Don't ask me ever to go on your white liberal show ever again. Too much is at stake for you to decide to suck up to Lauren Southern Lights. And another example, never mind the risks and what's at stake. Too many white liberals think engagement with fascists can be amusing, productive moment. That's because white liberals are never the targets of racist discrimination, hate speech, and radical violence and terror. So there, and look, this is just a selection. I pulled a few of them out, many more than that. And as you can see, for my little tweet here with 14 likes, well, 45, 50, 44. What's that called? When someone overtweets you, I can't remember. It's got a name, hasn't it?
So you're looking for ratio?
Yeah, ratio to the max. All right. The other part of this conversation is then that obviously shook us up a little bit. And we were thinking about it. And what I am, just so you know, is it might sound a bit weird to some people, but I am a bit of a rule follower. Like, I like to know the rules. And that might sound a bit naive because sometimes there might not be any rules, but I like to know the rules. And the rules were pretty clear from that influx of thing is you never platform these people. That's the rules, yeah? Don't platform these people. Don't give them a voice. Don't give them space. Would that be a fair assertion of a huge proportion of the response, Chewy?
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's no possible justification for talking to her at all, let alone
ever
doing a show around her.
So then what happened is some people within the thread, it doesn't matter who, that's why I don't know if you noticed, but I've stripped all the names off them. I actually don't want people identified. It's not about that at all. Started to share around, started to platform them. So don't ever platform anybody. And then some people in the thread telling us not to platform them started to platform them. So here's a couple of tweets that went out. One of them says, every time the media gives Chantal Baker a platform, she sounds more shite like this. I've actually cropped this t-shirt because it's
one of the dumbest things I've ever seen.
It's got a transphobic slogan on it. And I've blocked the name of where it's from because I don't want to promote it. But amongst all the criticism, we got told that we should never talk to Chantal Baker because when we do, she sells more shite like this, which, by the way, is one of 1,000 cuts that trans people face every day in their day-to-day lives. If you're not okay with this, don't interview her. Yeah, if you're not okay with this. Now, the thing that's just confused me about that, and if the person who's done this is watching this or sees this, I honestly, genuinely, I'm not trying to criticize you. This is what confused me. That tweet would have sold some of those t-shirts. There is no question that people would have seen that tweet. In fact, in part of the thread below it, I think there was some commentary about theirs turned up today. That tweet would have sold some of those shirts. Nothing that I spoke to Chantal about directed anyone to those things. There was no publicity for her, but that tweet probably did sell some of those t-shirts. At the same time, we're being told don't platform these people. On another thread, from some of the people who are offering their thoughts to us, we did talk about this in the show. Liz Gunn's love letter to all Kiwis. That tweet would direct people to that content that we're not supposed to be platforming. So it's very confusing to me because I am someone who wants to follow the rules. I genuinely am, yeah. And like, if the rules are don't do this or don't do that, generally I'm an amicable kind of guy. I'll stick with it. And the last thing about the series of tweets that went around, this is actually not from Friday, but it was from a few days earlier. One of the, and look, I'm not being patronized. They're fantastic people and I love the work they're doing, but I'm confused by the inconsistency that we have to abide by that other people don't. And maybe it's because I'm not part of I'm not even going to identify where this person's from, but whether it's the LGBT or the Pacific Island Māori or the trans, whatever it is, maybe it's because I'm not a part of that community. The rules are different.
Because you don't read the newsletter.
But maybe that's fair. Maybe that's fair if I'm not a part of the community. Gingers aren't. If you're not ginger, then you're not allowed to say anything about gingers. But I platformed another person with these same abhorrent views a few weekends ago, who was a mayoralty candidate for Dunedin called Richard Seeger, and the person or people who has been telling us you should never platform these people was then sharing my interview, which is right there, right? That's what the red circle is, with Richard Seeger, telling people to go watch, it's publicizing the platforming of something that shouldn't happen because we shouldn't platform these people. And then this man got his Twitter account suspended, which we all celebrated. And I'm hoping that perhaps the conversation I had with him had a contributing factor towards that. So don't platform them. Don't ever talk to them. By the way, here's an example of them being platformed, and you should check it out because it really shows who they are. So yeah, so I'm struggling, or I was struggling. I'm not now, as I said, I'm crystal clear now, but I was struggling to kind of figure out why and how I should live by another individual's inconsistent rules telling me to do something. So that was one of the things that made me go, hang on. There's some fantastic people out there sending out every time, like a Carl Bromley puts a tweet out, people send his tweet straight out. They just send it out to show the rest of the world what a buffoon this guy is. That's platforming. Fire and Fury is platforming. We never platform the people. Fire and Fury is platforming. Now, I know the response as well. The response is going to be, yeah, but Fire and Fury was done correctly. Remember, everything you've heard and seen so far was before we played the interview. So no one had a clue whether we'd done a terrible job or a great job. No one had a clue. Now, maybe they were right. Maybe it was a terrible job. But at that point, no one knew. And that was the response. I've been talking for a long time, Chewie. You got anything?
Yeah, I think all of that is true. It's like I found it quite amusing, frustrating, whatever. That after the interview was supposed to air, and obviously we didn't do it, and we spent an hour talking about what had happened at that point, we were still getting comments about how we'd done this atrocious thing. So it was really clear. Yeah, it was really clear that none of the people that had criticized us had even dipped our toe into even, like, I think I saw someone go, I've scrubbed through this, just fast forward. It looks like they didn't talk to her. And I think that got a couple of comments. But it certainly didn't get the traction of that the fact that we had spoken to Chantal and were going to air it.
So at this point, just to be clear, I'd interviewed Chantal Baker and I'd announced we were going to play it. That's it.
And here on the channel, we've been talking about the potential of it happening for 2 weeks. Couple of weeks.
Yep. I just want to put up Caitlin's comment, because that shirt that I just showed and said that a transphobic shirt was platformed by people saying don't platform these people. Caitlin, trans woman, she was in the thread and had to see all the transphobic nonsense, because that then engendered a conversation of transphobia by transphobic fuckwits, because of that shirt, because of
And
that tweet saying, because of what happened there.
If I remember correctly, there were 2 people in the replies to that going, "Oh, thanks. I've been looking for a t-shirt like that." And look, it might have been someone taking the piss.
Maybe.
But you know, there are people that will just hang around looking for a thread like this and troll, or they'll attack it because someone's retweeted it or whatever. But yeah,
If people are on the left who still think we're wrong, let me kind of finish this segment with one thing. I'm not wrapping you up, Chewie. You can say what you want, but I want to say with one thing. Damien Dement.
oh
right?
fuck yes, I forgot
People
about
who
that.
know that name, right?
Fuck.
Explain Damien Dement, people, in a sentence or less, Chewie.
He is a basement dwelling, QAnon, pro-Trump, white supremacist, worst person you could possibly imagine. Just the worst. The fucking worst person you can imagine. That's Damien Dement. Exactly the person you don't want writing into your YouTube comments going, yes, see, we're the same now. BHN and me, we're all dealing with the same thing. And holy shit, I almost snapped my keyboard.
So yeah, I was more reserved than you. I just got rid of him. Damien Dement, who is a horrific alt-right neo-Nazi white supremacist, whatever is the correct label for him, he was emboldened by the Twitter response. So what actually happened by those people on the left, who I still want everything positive for and want them to succeed in their overall goals, their response actually helped the person or people they're trying to get, like they're trying to suppress on some level. And then what actually happened is we ended up being the pawns in the middle. So you've got the people on one side making all this commentary and stuff and telling everyone how terrible they are. You've got Damien Dement then using all of that to further his cause, and we're just in the middle kind of going, what have we done? That sounds a bit naive, because yeah, we did something. Someone describes Damien Dement as a parfait of shit, Chewie. Oh, parfait, like an onion.
A parfait is also imported into this country, just saying. But yes, that sounds fancy.
But let me just finish this point. But the point is, and this, if nothing else, this is going to sound, and I get this is going to sound patronizing, because I am a nobody to offer this opinion, but the left in politics, the left in commentary, the left in activism has to do better. Has to do better. One of the reasons the right, which I believe in the Western world is a minority in every single country, is able to compete on a 50-50 level, is because the left does have a habit of either eating itself or being fractured and going, I don't agree with you enough, so I'm out. And I actually think that there's an element, and people who are significant activists aren't going to like this, that if the end game is X, then sometimes compromise within your own group needs to be made to help you get to the end game. If you're not prepared to compromise, and I know that's a dirty word for some people, or let's say work with people who aren't quite where you are, then Damien Dement fucking wins.
It really sounds like we're talking about the People's Front of Judea. That's a deep cut.
Anything you'd, and look, Chewie, if you disagree with what I'm saying, share it now. If you want to expand on anything, share it now, because one of the things I really want to get out there, and one of the things I want to work on, is actually I want the left to be better, to be stronger, to actually be there to make the decisions and have the control, because that's where I sit. And I've been kicked out of the boat, and I'm not, again, please, I'm not, it's not woe is me. I've been kicked out of that boat. I'll stay in my dinghy and do my stuff on the left, right? They'll keep doing the big time stuff. Cool. I'll support you. But if they now think I'm the devil, then it's actually them who's going to lose something. Because actually working together, even if we're just in the little dinghy behind you, is better for the overall cause than actually going, you're dead to me, which is basically what happened from some people last Friday.
Yeah, and that's right. Well, I haven't heard from that person since. We'll see if we hear from them again. We're coming up on 45 minutes.
Cool.
Of preamble.
So
where are we at?
So this is what we're going to do, guys. The full interview with Chantal Baker right now is on Patreon. I've made it available to everyone who joins. I did feel a little bit uncomfortable when last week someone joked about putting it on there because I'm not particularly wanting to earn money from this one interview. But this week and investigating this week, what this has done for me is it's caused me to go one of two things. One is 2.5 hours, or I actually edited it down, so it's about an hour 55, I think, is too long to play on the show for one interview. It's just too long, right? But two is that every long form conversation from now on is going to be on Patreon and on Patreon only. Okay. What we will do is when we do a long form interview, we will play some clips from it and we will talk to those clips, which is what we're going to do tonight. So we've got 3 clips we're going to play tonight within the interview. That's patreon.com/Big Hairy News, by the way. Within the interview, there was a couple of times, I think 3 times, where we were disagreeing on some facts and figures, Chantal and I, and both of us went, well, we need to address this later on. Let's address this later on. So rather than addressing it later on with Chantal, Chewy and I are just going to address them now. So there are factual incorrect or factually disagreeable moments within the conversation, and we're going to play 3 of those clips now, and we're going to show you what the accuracy is, which is why the clip for tonight is called something like Myocarditis, Inflation, and Socialism. We set the record straight tonight because there are 3 of the clips that we're going to play tonight from the conversation. So
I just want to stress, chat, that I too am just as shocked as you that Chantal Baker's numbers might not be right. Shock.
There's a couple. Look, I didn't pick this. In fact, I said what the 3 clips would be earlier in the week. I was like, if we're going to do this, and we didn't make a decision until what, Thursday morning, Chewy? Was that probably when we started to make? I didn't do the editing until today.
It took me really, 3 days to wade through that Chantal Baker interview.
Yeah. You watched it as well, but I didn't edit any of this stuff down until today, so I was leaving it till as long as possible, because we wanted to have everyone have a chance. And look, I'll be honest, a couple of people didn't come back to me in time. Fine, I wasn't going to wait forever. We were going to make the decision to move forward. So that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to look at tonight, and we're going to have a look at some 3 clips with Chantal Baker. And I think what we'll just do is we'll just play the clips one by one, and then we will address them. And we're going to start, I think, with myocarditis, because as you've said, Chewy, people have mentioned this in the chat a couple of times, so it's a perfectly good one to actually start the conversation with. So this is it's only 4 minutes, a 4-minute clip of the conversation between myself and Chantal Baker. Look, the other thing is, we probably, I don't know if we'll have time to, we don't want to sit around till midnight, but if people do want to jump into Discord and have a chat, we could possibly do that. But I'm not promising anything because, to be honest, I've got a child upstairs who was in hospital this week with tonsillitis, and she'll probably need me to go up and give her some more drugs. So let's not do that. We're not doing Discord because of my child. So my child is more important than you guys. Sorry. So here's the first 4-minute clip from the conversation, and this is me talking to Chantal about myocarditis. She makes some claims, and at the end of this 4-minute clip, we are going to test those claims.
The rate of myocarditis is much higher. If you're not vaccinated and get COVID, you'll have a higher rate of myocarditis than someone who's vaccinated who gets it from an adverse reaction. Now, they take that stat looking at everyone as a whole, but they haven't separated out different age groups. So the statistics now for young men are astronomically high when it comes to vaccine injury and myocarditis than an 8-year-old woman who gets myocarditis after having COVID when they're already predisposed to having high rates of myocarditis with age. So there's a lot of muddling with the science, and then they say that one thing is true and one thing is not, but they don't actually show how they got there. And I think New Zealand media has been worse than others at doing that.
I've just done a big thing on myocarditis because when we had Paula Penfold talking about Fire and Fury, I obviously got an influx of information from people who wanted to disagree with her. I disagree with the statement you've just had only because I've just done the research, like literally done the research 10 days ago. People sending me videos of this is the truth with all these teenage athletes in America, having heart conditions and palpitations and that kind of stuff. And I did a whole segment, a 17-minute segment, where I took one of their videos that I was sent as evidence and I broke down the first 54 seconds because I wasn't going to spend any more time on it than an hour of my own time.
Have you read the latest study that the FDA commissioned out of Thailand? Because that's the study that I'm talking about. An epidemiologist named Vinny Prasad, who's an epidemiologist from the University of California. That's where that data comes from. But
I don't know if I've seen that.
Yeah,
Say
so
the name again.
That's what I'm referencing. So Vinay Prasad, Vinay space Prasad, he's an epidemiologist at University of California. Now, he's not the one that did the study, the FDA commissioned study in Thailand with myocarditis in teenage boys, but it's looking at 1 in every 3,000 to 5,000. So I don't look at these videos and assume that that's the truth.
No, and that's the thing. I need to have a look at this and look it all up. 1 in 3,000 to 4,000, is that what you said?
1 in 3,000 to 5,000.
So 1 in 3,000 to 5,000. So 1 in 4,000 averaging. And what's the number of people who get COVID and have a myocarditis episode with COVID?
I don't know off the top of my head, but the study has it in there, so I'll send it to you.
Put it in the private chat and we'll have a look. Because every time that this has been looked at, it's always come out with every writing, be it from the Joe Rogan situation when he got Fat Check Live on air, or be it from when people send me stuff and I go looking, that it's always been more episodes of myocarditis from catching COVID than of myocarditis from a vaccine brought on. And look, that's one of the things I acknowledge that it's the case
as well, because most of the people, this is the difference though, and it's bracketed out into age groups. Because yes, that's accurate if you look at all ages as a whole, but that's what I'm saying about an 8-year-old woman who's predisposed to having myocarditis when you get older. It's a condition that a lot of elderly people get. When you're looking at teenage boys, it's a completely different scenario. And studies aren't breaking out the ages, and that's why this FDA study is so important.
But the numbers of myocarditis in teenage boys, let's say in America, because that's where I had a look at the research of this video, hasn't changed at all since 2011. So it hasn't gone up at all. It's about 80 to 100 a year. Dying or having situations with myocarditis here in America, teenage boys, that number hasn't changed at all since 2011.
Yeah, I haven't studied specific countries, but I just want to read the actual studies themselves. So I'm not looking at just general statistics overall. I just want to look at actual studies that have been done on myocarditis. And this is one of the only ones that I've seen, particularly with younger people.
This will be interesting to have a look at, and I'm happy to have a look at it. But it's when you say you haven't looked at specific countries, you said that this is based out of a Thailand study. So does that mean that it's based out of a specific country study?
What I mean by that is I haven't gone through every single country around the world and broken down their cases of myocarditis.
Right.
So I can't comment on that because I haven't gone and done that.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, back to you. I like Adam's comment. I think that's cool. So the very first thing, so you know, is that Chantal did send me some information afterwards. She did not send me the research. So I did not get a copy of the research. What she did send me was Vinny Prasad's website and also a Substack from another person with an opinion on that, but did not send me the research that she was talking about. She said she was going to send me the research. She did not send me the research. However, here is the research.
Oh, no. Not the actual research.
Yes. I have the research.
No, we want to keep referring to somebody that's had this described to them by somebody else.
The first thing, and I want to say this, is that Chantal was citing the wrong numbers. You heard her citing one in 3,000 to 5,000. You heard that number, correct? I was really confused. I was looking at this for an hour, and that's not what the article says. So she's been confused because this is the guy she mentioned, Vinny Prasad. Vinny Prasad talks about research done in Israel in February 2021. And that research, which is not the research she's even citing, preliminary figures varied, but reports place it at 1 in 3,000 to 5,000 ballpark. So actually the numbers she's citing aren't even for the research that she's citing. So without even looking at the research, what she's telling us is inaccurate and wrong. She's not even citing the correct research with her numbers. That's the first thing. The second thing is there's a very good Reuters article about this Thai teenagers, right? And what it says is fact-check study of Thai teenagers did not find 1/3 of experienced heart effects after COVID vaccination. So the meme that was going around, so she's citing the wrong disinformation. The actual disinformation from the Thailand one was 1/3 of children got this. And that's not the case. That's, first of all, that's not true. That's disinformation. But what she was citing wasn't even the correct disinformation, saying it was from this. I don't need to go through too much of it, other than to tell you that there was 301 teens in Thailand found, a study of 301 teens in Thailand found mild and temporary heart rhythm changes after a second dose of the Pfizer vaccine among 1 in 6 teenagers, not 1/3 as social media posts claim. The study also saw a possible signs of heart inflammation in just 7, so that's 7 out of 300, with rhythm changes and confirmed myocarditis in 1. So one child in 301 from this study had myocarditis. So that's 0.3%, right? Because 1 out of 300, 0.3% round figures. The study is really important to know that they also did a different sample size or a different sampling of people. So the numbers 0.3% are actually higher than what has been reported before. But it says here, this is the actual, we're actually now looking at the actual, this is the actual study. I have the actual study here, right? The other thing to be aware of is that, I can go back to that Reuters one. There's an explanation for why they think the numbers were a bit higher. It says here that we found the risk of these symptoms to be not as low as reported elsewhere, so higher than reported elsewhere, but in all cases, symptoms were mild with full recovery within 14 days. So no problems, full recovery. She cited the wrong disinformation, and the right disinformation still doesn't actually support what they think it supports. Chewy, yours, sir.
So a couple of things. Clearly, Chantal was elected to lead, not to read.
Is that something from Trump? That sounds like a Trump thing.
It's another Simpsons quote. That's the only thing I've got. Look, this is the infuriating part of it. We've talked about platforming someone. Chantal already has an enormous platform.
No, not as enormous as it used to be.
Oh, that's something. There's hope.
Do you know? Sorry, I'm not cutting you off, but do you know something? I'm really surprised that she lost 100,000 Facebook followers. I've had a look a couple of times at her YouTube channel. Her YouTube channel is bigger than ours, no question. Yeah. But it went from like 3,500 to 4,000 over a couple of weeks. I was quite surprised. It didn't take off. There's nowhere near the same influence that she once had. If indeed all those followers were accurate, I have been told by a couple of mis and disinformation researchers that there is an allegation of some of those followers being bought. As an allegation, I don't know if it's true or not, but that's out there.
I find it interesting that you mentioned that drop, because there was a big wave of account bannings not too long ago that we should probably fit in that window. So there you go. Shill accounts, bot accounts, toxic accounts. They went through and they binned a whole lot of them. But yeah, I think regardless of how many people that she has, one of the things is this is the way that they all talk. They come in and they sound like they know what they're talking about because they're referring to a study and they're referring to the doctor, and we'll chuck in some numbers in there and we'll give you enough information that you're confident enough to go and then vomit that out to someone else or on Facebook or whatever, knowing that 9 times out of 10, people aren't going to do what Pat's just done there, which is go, oh, you're quoting a piece of literature. I'll go and find it. Oh, actually, none of that makes any sense. And it's not true. But for most people, if it matches your confirmation bias, that is good enough.
Yeah.
I trust this person enough to just not check anything. And that is the real challenge of fighting disinformation. Is no one's going to go out there and read a dry-ass study.
We've talked about this before. It's the Gish Gallop. They spew something out. And look, there were several times, and if you want to see the full interview, you got to go, it's Patreon. Go fill your boots. But there were several times when things like were said in the conversation, like the government is controlling the media. Okay, that's a testable claim. Expand that. And of course, then there's nothing. There was one point, in fact, are we playing it here? The socialism one? I'm not sure. But there was one claim.
Yeah.
We're playing a socialism one, but there was one claim where the Labour Party basically advertises that they're a socialist party. Excuse me? They advertise they're a socialist party. Where that on their website, couldn't find it. Couldn't find it on the website. Could find in 1896 there was a socialist party, was the beginnings of it, but not present tense. So yeah, look,
that was the other thing I was going to say about that, because that particular quote from her drove me furious, because it's real easy to find an example from Parliament TV of a Labour MP saying he was a proud socialist. It was Kieran McNulty, and he got up and he said it in a speech. So it's not even hard to find. She just said something and then just lacks the ability to even Google to a video that was shared around like nobody's fucking business.
Yeah,
it's just crazy. I mean, for those of you in the chat, what I want you to do is cast your mind back to, say, fifth form history or whatever, if you studied anything to do with political movements and that sort of thing. See if you can define socialism in the shortest amount of words that you can, and go. And we'll come back to that in a wee sec.
We will. We'll do. I think we're going to do the inflation conversation first, because that's what I've got queued up. So another clip for you from Chantal, and that is, we had actually this conversation is mostly around disinformation to do with how terrible the government is. Now, we did talk in the conversation in the the long form conversation where I went, well, if you want to criticize the government on housing or on monetary policy, that's one thing, but kind of accusing them of being socialists and trying to control the media, there's sort of two different things. If you want to accuse them of their housing policy, then you vote them out and you get the other guys in to fix that problem. If you want to accuse them of controlling the media, that's a far different accusation and from a different world. So this was one of those conversations, and it was talking a little bit about her view of the economy, and the disagreement here was what's going to happen with inflation. Right, like I said, the clips we're playing tonight, and there's only two more of them, there's this one and another one, they're both pretty short, was talking about we got to the end of a part of a conversation and we had a disagreement, but we didn't have I didn't have at my fingertips the ability to say, well, here, look, we do now, so that's why we're playing them. There's actually another part about this conversation we're going to cover off on, and that is the effectiveness of vaccines, which is a talking point of Chantal's as well. So this is her mostly talking about inflation, with a little addendum talking about vaccines as well. I'll be back to you in 3 minutes. No, I don't know that. I disagree with your statement. Okay. As I said, we've both looked up data before, and I've seen numerous studies talking about the rate of transmission being down with the vaccines. But now I'm also going to acknowledge to you,
it's down, but it doesn't stop it. I said stop. So that's the terminology. It doesn't completely stop transmission for everyone. It doesn't.
So you think if you can't make it safer, don't worry at all? That's your philosophy.
What I'm saying is, what's the trade-off? Like, we've got to look at an economic trade-off as well. We've now got skyrocketing inflation. If you've got people that are going to be pushed out of homes, pushed out of being able to afford jobs, then you've got to think about the quality of life that drops for them as well, because that equates into deaths. Now, we should have consulted properly with a range of economists before we decided to lock down the country. And then we decided to introduce vaccine mandates, lose a whole lot of jobs based on what? Based on a vaccine that does not completely stop transmission.
Chantal, I really want to have an honest conversation with you, but if you want to start talking about our inflation rate, the only response I can have was we're actually doing fairly well compared to the rest of the world. There's probably two countries, one being Australia, and then you start to look at our trading partners that are not Western countries like China and Japan, who their inflation rates are better than ours. Now, no one's saying, and even the national government, I had Michael Woodhouse on this show a few weeks ago saying, because they were slamming the government on the 7.3, right? The inflation rate. And I said, what do you think it should be? And he was like, we'd probably have it around 5.5. And I'm like, so National would be happy with a 5.5% inflation rate, according to Michael Woodhouse. The rest of the world is 2 to 3% higher than us. No one's saying it's a good result, but equally, you got to actually have a look at where we're at and where we could be at compared to the rest of the world. It seems to me that the decisions that have been made thus far, no golden ticket, no saying going forward it's going to be perfect, have us in a better position than most. So what's the complaint?
No, but my complaint is that it should have been properly, we should have been looked at properly from the beginning by economists, and it wasn't. Because you say, oh, it's better than most, but it's still bad and it's still growing. Like, we're heading into a recession. Surely,
but we're in a better place than the rest of the world, almost the rest of the Western world, bar one or two countries. So however they did it, and I wasn't on the 9th floor, I don't know what the conversations were. Whatever they decided and however they did it, right? It's worked better than the rest of the world. So what do you want it to be? Would you be happy only if we were the best country in the world for the results of where we're at right now? That would be okay. Anything else is not good enough.
I think that we're at the very beginning of a very long journey. I don't think we're not going to stop inflation here. It's going to keep going up and up and up based on the decisions that all governments around the world have made over the last 2 years.
Just to come back with your position.
Let's talk in 12 months' time about inflation, and we can see if it was right.
No. Just to come back to you on economists, that's not what economists are saying right now, Chantal. Most of them are saying by the middle of next year, we will see it starting to trend down. The economists are saying this. So that means what?
Oh, was that a question? Sorry, I thought you were going to keep going.
No, I'm saying if we're talking about economists, most economists are saying by the middle of next year, they expected inflation to start trending down.
Okay, well, I've talked with multiple economists who disagree. So if you can send me your links, I'd like to read through them as well, because I want to be more informed. So if it's going to go down by the middle of next year, that's fantastic. I don't think it will. That's just my personal outlook on it based on what I've read so far. But again, if you can send me more information, more than happy to read it.
Okay, then. Shall we do that?
Holy shit. So yeah, mark your calendars. We're coming back to her in a year. That should be fun.
Okay, the first things first, yeah? This whole thing for people who are spouting dis and misinformation about vaccines, there is no question BA5, what we're currently getting at the moment, the COVID that's floating around at the moment, is getting past the vaccine. We know that. It's happening. We know that most of the reason to be vaccinated now is to keep you out of hospital. That's because the vaccine hasn't changed yet and the virus has. So in that conversation with Chantal several times, I had to keep going, no, but at the start, vaccines were more effective. They're less effective now. Just like last year's flu shot is not as effective this year, right? But the claim that she made was it wasn't stopping transmission, to which I, of course, said, well, but it's helping, and she was, no, but stopping. It's like, okay, so wearing a seatbelt doesn't necessarily mean you won't be killed in a car crash, but we still wear a seatbelt because it's safer. What I thought I'd do, sorry, you go, Terry.
You saw that a lot from these people, that it had to be 100% perfect or it wasn't worth doing. Like, you couldn't have a drop off in efficacy. You couldn't have, if we're getting the virus, then why do we have to wear masks? If we're getting the vaccine, then why are there still people in hospital? It obviously doesn't work. But the fact that less people were dying, if you were vaccinated, or you weren't as sick for as long, or you weren't as transmissible, it was never. Things aren't 100%.
Yeah. Well, and there's evidence of that actually, which I have for you right here. This is a two-parter because we're talking about inflation as well. So this, I googled over 2021 because we know that 2022 BA5 it's not as effective. So this is a story from 2021, and there is a link right there to the actual research, which I have right there. I've looked at the research as well. A recent study found that vaccinated people infected with the Delta variant, so this is towards the last quarter of last year, are 63% less likely to infect people who are unvaccinated. This is only slightly lower than with the Alpha variant. So the Alpha variant was higher because Delta was different, so it wasn't quite as effective. Says yada, 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 at the National Institute for Public Health and the Environment in the Netherlands, who led the study. Her team had previously found that vaccinated people infected with Alpha were 73% less likely to infect unvaccinated people. So it's protecting people. It's not perfect, and it's getting weaker. And that was just a point. And there was no way around that. A recent study found that unvaccinated were 63% less likely to infect people who are unvaccinated. And as I said, there's the data there, and it shows that, there it is, 63%, 73%, it's all there. But anyway, also the the myriad of economists. Now, I missed a trick in that conversation. Two things. One is I put out misinformation because it's not by the middle of next year. Economists are saying by the end of this year. So I'm a dirty liar. And the other thing is I should have said to Chantal, who are the economists? Because I don't believe her. I just don't believe
economist.
Yeah, I've been speaking to a whole bunch of economists. I don't. Maybe one. You're fair enough, one, but a whole bunch. I don't believe it. So here's some information, which is from August the 30th. If the Reserve Bank forecasts are right, inflation will have fallen to 5.8% by Christmas and to 3.8% by the end of next year. BNZ sees inflation falling significantly faster to 5.2% by Christmas and 3.1% a year after that. ANZ, on the other hand, forecasts inflation will ease off more slowly to 6.1% by the end of the year, but then crash to 2.5% by the end of next year. There is a broad agreement on why inflation should have peaked. Central banks around the world have begun talking and acting tougher on inflation, raising interest rates, even in the face of sapping confidence and growing fears of recessions. And just a little addendum there. We're about to move into a recession. I saw you kind of rallying about that. That was something else Chantal said. Now, I didn't know this at the time, but just news this week. New Zealand has avoided a recession, with Stats NZ on Thursday morning revealing a 1.7% quarterly lift in gross domestic product. So now that, I mean, I don't hold her too accountable for that, because there were some people who say we were going into a recession, but just a little addendum on the end of that. Like most economists, certainly the ones that are mainstreamed, that are telling us inflation is starting to go down. They think it's peaked. They think, might not be right, but they think, and we haven't gone into a recession. Chewy.
Yes, a couple of things that I want to point out here, and they're not as heavy hitting as what you've been going on, but I've just been pointed out in the chat. One of my favorite things about this interview is the room that she is doing it in.
Why is that your favorite?
You know, if you are doing an interview and you want to be a big smarty pants with a big brain, the common backdrop to have is a bookshelf full of books.
Oh, yeah.
And if we look at the bookshelves behind Chantal, they're almost entirely empty. And it's just something that I was like, that's the best analogy that you could have. Just empty bookshelves. Yeah, that's all. Just a little set dressing piece of advice there. Maybe buy a backdrop from Amazon.
The last segment is probably longer than I want to play, so I might actually just skim through it a little bit and find the salient point. So this is going to be terrible broadcasting, and I appreciate and I apologize about that. But Chewy, why don't you read some tweets while I play some of these, and I'll just try and find it, because it's 8.5 minutes. I'm not going to play it all.
Yeah. So I got some comments here. One from David. Every example.
It's not even. It's a dictator, actually. No, that's me. I'm just playing. I got to find it. So you just keep talking over us.
Okay. Every example of a paper that anti-vaxxers have presented to me has either failed to peer review or in most cases been entirely misrepresented by anti-vaxxers. That is definitely a tactic.
That's what socialism is.
The lady on TikTok said a doctor said it and got fired for saying it, so it must be true. And that's another good one. The basically the martyr to the cause sort of thing. And then I think we dip into socialism a little bit. Obviously, this will be something that Chantal is focusing on. That Jacinda, of course, was the leader of the Young Socialists.
Yeah.
Now, my argument to this is if Jacinda is such a just a socialist, and we're going to be watching for the socialism, when's it going to happen?
Yeah.
Because I'm waiting. Do some socialism.
Yeah. Look, I'm going to play the first couple of minutes of this. I'm probably not going to get all of it that we wanted to, but I really don't want to. I'm not going to. We don't want to hang around here till midnight. So we'll play the part of this. This is asking Chantal Baker, because this is often a refrain used by people who want to portray a particular group of people as evil, that it's all about socialism. So we'll play the start of this. I'm going to cut out of it partway through, and then we'll either throw it to Chewy, who's the socialist expert, or we've got another little clip, which is actually nothing to do with the show, but it's a lovely little clip talking about socialism. So here is Chantal Baker talking about socialism. I mean, I think I've heard you use the word socialist, maybe fascist about the government. Have you associated those words to this current government? Like when
Socialism,
you're talking to Sky,
yes. Not fascism, but
okay,
socialism.
all right. I saw you on a Sky News platform talking about the socialist government, and I was wondering, because sometimes words are relative. What does that mean to you? What is socialism to you?
I think they've got aspects of socialism that they want. Well, actually, no, they want to go more full socialist. And I think we see that. I mean, I see it anyway with how they're trying to control the media as well. It's turning more things into state-owned and creating more of a nanny state, more of a welfare state, which we've had in place for quite a long time. So I'm in pro of a free market capitalist system. We've got a blend of both here in New Zealand. But what I'm worried about with Labour is that we're heading more towards socialist Venezuela with our policies than we are towards the socialism of, say, Sweden, where they
I guess what I'm saying is, if I was 5 years old, define socialism for me. Like, because the way you're describing it now doesn't sound like what socialism is. So what do you mean by socialism? Like, define it.
Yeah, I just think it's state owning most of the assets and running people under a welfare system. That's how I perceive socialism. But I think there's aspects of socialism that are good. Like I'm glad that we've got a free healthcare system. I don't think all aspects of socialism are bad, but I think that the blend that we're going towards now does concern me.
See, I think probably. So there we go. There's a definition of socialism. I was just wondering if this was. Oh, this is the bit about Labour, or maybe I'll play the last couple of minutes as well. So she defined what socialism was, which my understanding is not socialism. Yeah, because I know Labour Party MPs don't call themselves socialists, so it would be very strange to. So the preamble to this is she's just said publicly that the Labour Party actively kind of sells himself, I'm paraphrasing, as the Socialist Party. If the party itself sold itself as a socialist party, as I say, social democracy is one thing, and that I mean, look, I think that words matter. I really do.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. Here we are.
Our priorities. This is Chantal saying it was on their website. Tell me where to go. I've got the where it is on the website. I'm looking at the same time as to where they define themselves as a socialist party. And look, I mean, I might be wrong. I'm not saying that. I wouldn't be surprised if the word was mentioned in the our history part. Because I think there probably are some aspects of the way socialism was worked in the 30s, 40s, and 50s as it was state housing and stuff. But they're a different party today than they were, and I would doubt. Well, I'll be careful because I'm okay to be proven wrong, but I would be surprised if they actively sold themselves as the Socialist Party in 2022.
Oh, I don't think they sell themselves as that, but I think
you've just said they call themselves the Socialist Party.
Because they had. Let me find it for you. But the New Zealand Socialist Party, founded in 1901, promoting the works of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, it was one of the parties that united in 1916 to form the New Zealand Labour Party.
1901.
And Jacinda Ardern was the leader of the International Socialist Youth. Jacinda Ardern was.
When she was a teenager?
No, she wasn't. She was in her 20s.
Well, at university.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the birth of the Labour Party.
She calls herself a socialist. Yeah.
Well, show me the evidence for that. This political party, this is from the birth of the Labour Party. This new political party included a range of views from former radical liberals to militant socialists. Some of the party's executive were among the dozens of imprisoned for opposing conscription, and more generally, the party campaigned for better pay for soldiers and their families. Back to 1894, the small New Zealand Socialist Party. So is this your link, 1894 and the birth of the party, to they call themselves the Socialist Party? Just so I'm clear, is that your link to them calling themselves like present tense?
No, I'll find the exact reference for you because I don't want to misquote anything. So I'll find the exact reference for you and send it through to you.
Sure.
But in 2008, she was elected the president of the International Union of Socialist Youth. So. Right. That's only 10 years ago. She's absolutely a socialist, and she was very proud of her socialist.
14 years ago, technically. All right. That was my favorite part of the whole interview. 2008, 10 years ago. Hey, what? Chewy, your mic's off, bro.
I was frantically trying to find out if I could find some better evidence than Chantal could by flailing around
not there.
On her laptop.
And this is the thing. This is like the vaccine thing. The vaccine doesn't stop transmission, present tense. Well, it did when it came out. The Labour Party actively sells themselves as a socialist party. Well, well, no, in their past, it's a part of it, but it's the present tense conversations there as well.
So I have actually found some damning evidence. Would you like to see it?
Please.
It needs to
Zoom,
be a bit
zoom,
bigger,
zoom.
doesn't it?
Yes, I'm a proud socialist, and I'm proud. Oh, yes, I'm a socialist, and I'm proud of it. Yeah, there you go. Thank you very much. Bring it on. And I'm very proud to say to the good people of the Waipara that they elected a proud socialist as their MP.
I couldn't find the video, which is excellent, but you know, that's just saying if she couldn't find that or didn't know that, that's amazing. So yes, the Labour Party has socialists in it while not being a socialist party. As pointed out in the chat as well, I think I just lost it actually. A lot of the more strident comments about Labour being socialist was actually driven out of the party in the wake of the big Wharfie strikes in the 50s.
Right.
So, you know, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, all of that.
So Chewy, I've got that clip here. What is socialism? But do you think we've handled that well enough, or do you think we could even play that last little 60 seconds that you heard me play? Should we play that last little 60 seconds that you heard me play?
Yeah, sure thing.
So this is a video. It's actually a very good video. It's asking what is socialism, and it's got nothing to do with us. It's just an interesting little video, and I particularly like how they end it about people who use the words socialism.
Standard of living for the good of the state. Although both strive for similar utopian socialist goals, the way they approach them is very different. These examples show that socialism, along with its logical extreme, communism, may be backed by rational theory, but requires rational practice to go along with it. Socialist democracies are the happiest countries in the world. Other socialist-leaning countries like China and Cuba suffer from terrible human rights abuses like modern slavery and censorship. Maybe the best takeaway is not to trust anyone using the word socialism to describe radically different political theories. Just because salad is in the name doesn't make fruit salad, potato salad, and Caesar salad.
There you go. I love it. I love it ending. If people are, it's like I used to say when I was working in talkback, people who said, "Oh, that's so PC." It's a bit like the word woke now. Normally, the people who use it are the least people who understand what it actually means. And I think the same could be said for socialism.
When I watched this, when we were reviewing how the interview went and that sort of thing, we got to that bit. I heard my fifth form history teacher screaming in the back of my head. I still remember he quoted Marx at us. From each according to their ability, to each according to their need. Boom, socialism done.
Which in its purest sense, like I've always talked about isms, especially political isms, pretty much all of them in their purest sense would work. Even things like capitalism, you know, that actually the best product rises to the top and gets supported by the community. But we don't live in a perfect site. You know, in America, the capitalist capital of the world, I guess, they put their thumb on the scale. And they, when capitalism gets in trouble, they start to give them handouts like socialism. You know, socialism, like they're talking about socialist-leaning countries like China, because people are involved, people are corrupt. So all of the isms, in their purest sense, have validity on some level. But human beings are dirtbags. The ones at the top can be, and all of those isms get corrupted by us. So that's why when people go, "Oh, socialism like Venezuela," it's like, actually no, that's a corrupt leadership. Basically feathering their own nest and claiming a socialist state when it doesn't have any of the attributes of socialism.
Yeah, and famously with Venezuela, definitely no outside interference.
No.
From regional superpowers going on there either.
Let me say this. Raywin and Mike and Christine and Simon and Mark and Jonty and Kookie and Graham and Michael and Kim and Rob and Gareth and Pat, and I think it's Sue and Carl and Cy and Stephen, who have all signed up to Patreon. You guys can
champions.
You guys can get access to the full interview because it's on Patreon right now. As I said very clearly, I didn't feel comfortable for a while about actually pushing this. One of the things that I've had a bit of a steely reserve with is that actually, if we're going to do this, until we get our shill money from the government, obviously, which I think comes on the 30th of every month, or Big Pharma, I'm looking forward to that fucking check. That'll be a cracker. That, we've got bills to pay, and you're welcome to get on board. So from now on, all long form interviews, anything that's like more than an hour, will go on Patreon. Clips will go in the show like they have tonight. Today, the Chantal Baker interview is not on Patreon because of the interview. It's on Patreon as the first of many. So it happens to be the first. This experience of the last week has helped us get there. And I kind of want to finish up, not that we have to finish for YouTube, with one thing. And the one thing I want to finish up with kind of has to do back to the conversation about the community. Yeah. And I don't want to sound patronizing, to go right back to the start. And look, we won't talk about this again. Yeah. We're done. We have our direction. We know our lane. We know where we're going to go. But when I talked about me being shocked last Friday with what we received, not that there weren't valid concerns, not that there weren't correct assumptions or correct positions made. I'm not the target of racism. I'm not the target of transphobia. I'm not the target of misogyny. I'm not. Correct. You're correct in all of those things. And I don't want to do woe is me, and I don't want to don't cry for me, Argentina. But I played this clip, I think, the night before the Friday, so last Thursday night. And this is about the transgender woman who helped bring down kiwi farms. And I was struck after Friday night, particularly about this part of the interview. This woman has been chased out of her home in Canada to a hotel, chased out of the hotel in Canada to Ireland, had people turn up to her apartment in Ireland on Kiwi Farm to continue to harass her and continue to try and take her down, who is now getting more death threats for being a part and maybe the reason that Kiwi Farms, especially a trolling community, has been taken down. She got asked how she wanted to interact now with those people who are opposing her. She got asked how she was going to interact with the people who want her dead. This was her response.
Sorrenti knows getting Kiwi Farms taken offline won't make all her trolls and harassers go away. What is your message to the people who are doing this to you?
I don't blame them, really, because
Really?
Yeah, they got roped into a hate group. And once you get deep enough inside one of these things, it's really hard to get out. I want to show them more compassion than they've ever shown me.
And it just struck a chord with me. Not it's the same situation, because we haven't been roped into anything like in a disinformation way. But if what many would describe as enemies, one part of that is saying, I want to approach them in love. To have people who I thought I was sitting in the boat with basically say, you're fucking dead to me, that shook me. That clip I just played woke me up. And now we have a new direction and we know what we're doing. Because I want to approach people in love. I still want to approach the people who kicked us out of the boat in love, which is why I've done things like cut all their names off the tweets, which is why I've deleted that tweet. I don't want any repercussions to come with them because they are doing good work. They are doing hard work. They are doing good work, but we are in different lanes in the same part of the sea. We're in different boats in the same part of the sea. I didn't feel the need to get into the dinghy, but I think the dinghy is where I'm going to sit, and I will still do everything I can to fill their sails, and I will do everything I can to keep going in this dinghy, this little dinghy, however we can, to also hopefully further the end we're all looking for in the long run. Shall we?
Absolutely. Hey, I'm going to leave with a comment here again, just to highlight for people. We see comments from Facebook and YouTube, but in the chat they don't mingle, which is a shame. Fiona has had some great comments tonight I think a slightly different tangent, which is good, which is what we want. We're glad that you've stuck with us for our traditional hour long show. That's kind of our bag now, I think. But
Friday
Fiona
night.
says, first time I've watched a live from this page. That page I'm assuming is Facebook or Dunedin News, where we have this up as well. You've been talking for an hour and a half almost. You could have just played the interview and allowed your viewers their own choice and their opinion.
We could have, but we chose not to.
We could have done that, but we've kind of laboured the point now. But really, we wanted to listen to the people that were trying to get our attention and give them the respect that they deserve. That we weren't just going to bulldozer over whatever they thought.
Well, and also,
I think in this way we've come up with a better way of doing the whole show.
Yeah.
As a whole because of it. So to them, as much as it made our head spin last week, thank you. Not that I think you watched the show, but thank you.
No one ever say this.
Just keep doing what you're doing, but maybe help people on their journey rather than slamming the door behind them.
I even think just keep doing what you're doing. I don't have any criteria or conditions for that group of people. Just keep doing what you're doing. You be you, boo. I don't mean that in a patronizing way. It's like you guys are doing amazing work. You go and be the face of this. I'll be IT. I'll be tech support in the background, not being seen by anybody. I'm fine with that. Just on that point though about we could have played it, I want to make this really clear. We had a lot of interaction with people after we chose not to play the episode last week that we should play it. And I said this twice during the week. I was going to use the word bullied. What's a better word? Because I'm not calling them bullies because I don't want to do that. Forced. I was not going to be forced into playing it by people who were considering us to back down. Equally, though, we were not going to be forced into not playing it. We took a pause. We did our work. We have a new direction or a new way of doing things. And Chewy just made a comment there about if they see this, they will not see this. So it's fine. We're off doing our own thing. They're doing their thing. And I will continue to talk about what they're doing when they're doing it. And I will continue rowing our dinghy. That'd be a good name for a podcast or something. Rowing the dinghy.
No, I think we've settled on oh God, what was it? Betty Man Talks.
Betty Man Talks.
Betty Talking Mans.
Betty Talking Mans.
Anyway, we'll circle back to it. We can rebrand. It's okay.
Thanks for jumping on board. If you want to see the Chantel Baker conversation, it's on Patreon, patreon.com/Big Hairy News. Other than that, we're done. If you're a Dunedin person, I have Lee Vandervis tomorrow in the Mayoralty conversation.
It's the main event. It's happening.
And I've got other ones in the weekend as well. But as for BHN, then the standard show will be back Monday night from 10 p.m. for another edition. And that's it. We're done talking beardy beards, talking beardy heads, says heady beardy beards. Oh, that's heady beardy beards. Out for the week. Thank you for joining us. And as I said, don't panic. We will never talk about last Friday night again. It's onwards and upwards.
Yes.
Promise. And thank you for being with us. I hope you had a good night. Hope you enjoyed the clips. Go sign up to Patreon if you want to see the episode. And other than that, we will catch you next time. Hooroo, guys. All the best.